You're listening to Discography Discussion, episode 188, Code Orange, hosted by Dan Terry.
Let's just tax the bandwidth even more, shall we?
I got plenty of it. Geoff Kane.
Yeah, I do too. It's not like I'd have an issue.
And Joseph Wren.
Harsh working conditions over here.
That's what happens when you start your shit. Save me. Presented by discussmetal.com. And if you're out of Code Red but stocked to the brim on Livewire, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe, that is Dan, that is Geoff. Could we be listening to anything more dirgy and dissonant and harsh sounding than Code Orange this week?
Well, I mean, absolutely we could, but we decided to stick with Code Orange because little peek behind the curtain, kids. That's just the band that we picked for this week.
Yeah, and it was a wonderful discovery for me because for whatever reason, I've heard lots of people say, yeah, Code Orange this, Code Orange that. And for whatever reason, when people do that, I guess it's the hipster in me. I'm just like, yeah, everybody else likes it. They can have it. I'll find something else.
Way to be a hipster douche about it.
Yeah, was I fucking dumb about that? Because holy fucking shit, do I love this goddamn band.
Yeah, they definitely took us on a journey, and in only 4 records.
Yeah, I tell you what, talk about really progressing. They definitely did that because they went from just a pretty much straight ahead hardcore punk band to just space industrial metal out the fucking yin yang and just scratched every itch to make, that I needed, man. It was so great. Such an easy set of albums to listen to this week, especially the last 2.
I am extremely upset that we didn't save this one for December because what better combination for this podcast than space, industrial, dissonance, hardcore? It's like everything everybody likes all at once.
Yeah, but the industrial part, that's only one album really. So we're good with doing it right now. If we did a Patreon review of that album in December, it would have made sense. But no, the entire discography, I don't think would have fit perfectly for December. There's enough of a journey that we wouldn't be able to quote unquote pigeonhole this band like we can with others.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that this band is a weird mix of being one of the heaviest bands I've ever heard with being a band that really kind of forged ahead with the whole new metalcore thing. Yeah,
they got some chops. I mean, they proved over 4 albums that you cannot put them in one particular arena of metal. They've definitely are very eclectic, and I love the fact that they've been able to take those leaps, and the fact that they're talented enough to make those leaps work is fucking awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. They're killer. And I think that one of the biggest things about this band overall is that they had so much kind of hardcore underground credibility prior to them being kind of one of the bigger bands in this genre. And so that's really interesting to kind of see their rise to fame in such a short period of time. I mean, you're talking like 2012 through 2020. In 8 years, not only have they gone through as much musical change as they've gone through, but they've actually become super popular in the process.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And it's a journey that's well worth taking. I'm glad we're doing this episode because there's some really cool shit going on with this band.
Well, before Geoff switches gears and takes us on a journey into the world of Catatonia, I'm going to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you're not a subscriber, then you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, so if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening. And now Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
Well, we love the hell out of 5-star reviews here on Discography Discussion. And I'm going to read one for you right now. This is a 5-star review on Apple Podcast from Kentucky Bible Incident. It's like hanging out with metalhead friends. Love the show. As the subject suggests, it feels like hanging out with open-minded metalheads talking about your favorite band CDs. Please do, God forbid. By the way, Cannibal Corpse is not a thrash metal band, Joe.
You're wrong, but I forgive you.
Oh.
And by the way, thanks for listening to the show.
I was going to say everything's a thrash metal band, Joe.
That's true. We were talking about who the fuck were we talking about? And Joe kept saying, thrash. I think it was Strong Arm. Anyway, I mean, he's not entirely wrong.
So you're saying I'm not wrong?
I'm saying
we just love to give Joe shit.
I'm saying you're
it's
not
like one of our
entirely
favorite
wrong.
pastimes.
I'm saying you're only mostly wrong. If you were all wrong, you couldn't be on the podcast.
So Dan, tell me about Code Orange.
Well, Code Orange was a band that started in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 2008. So they're like new guys, right? Because I mean, at my age, 2008 was like 3 days ago. And they started off actually called Code Orange Kids, which is where some confusion kind of came. Because I had no idea that they were called that before, because I'm relatively new to Code Orange. So in my initial listen through of the albums, I missed their first release because it was under Code Orange Kids instead of Code Orange. It's kind of a my bad, but you know, it's kind of like you got the Muppets and then you got the Muppet Babies. So Code Orange Kids is Muppet Babies.
Well, if this is Muppet Babies, this is the show you should have been watching, dude, because 2012, Love is Love returned to dust. This is some extreme, dissonant, hardcore, aggressive, I'll say American standards level intensity, because that's kind of my definition of what is good hardcore at this point.
This is some good hardcore shit, that's for sure. And what I like about it the most is like the higher pitch vocals, the kind of more, I don't know, like the screams are kind of more frantic and kind of in your face. I love this because this has aspects of hardcore and metal without actually being metalcore. And, you know, of course it's going to sound fucking amazing because it was recorded by Kurt Ballou.
Yeah, you know what's funny is this is, the vocals were okay for me on this, but like you said, there was something, not necessarily like an emo emotional, but you could tell that there was something behind the voice that just kind of gave it that extra intensity. If that makes any sense, it's not like it's the best thing that you've ever heard, but the delivery, you feel it. That's the best way that I can put it. And I really dug it just because of that. It struck me in a way that I wasn't expecting, because I'm normally like straight ahead hardcore punk. That kind of stuff just not always my cup of tea. There's only a handful of bands that I actually listen to on the regular that are hardcore. And this caught me by surprise. Was super happy with it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one quite a bit. As you know, it's no secret that I'm kind of a fan of this sort of retro hardcore sound. And even though the band themselves is not retro, they kind of bands like Code Orange and even Vane kind of remind me of some of the first hardcore bands that I first started listening to. So, I mean, it's got kind of a nostalgia feel for me. I'm into it. I like that it's in and out, 27 minutes, you're done. And it's just a nice little package of brutality. But one of the things I like about it too is that it almost has more in common with some of the more like emo power violence type bands that were out there at the time. And I like that because it adds kind of an extra layer of unpredictability to the music, where, you know, you get to moments that are so intense that they're almost indistinguishable from being grind. And that was really kind of my favorite part about this, is that I really wasn't sure what it was going to do. And it just kind of went off on a bomb in my brain.
Code Orange as a band likes to take left turns, and they like to put these layers together that sound random enough. Like everyone in the room is playing the same song, but they started at different times. And the aggressive, random nature of this record with those hardcore roots, it fits right in. And if the band had stayed here, I would not have been shocked. I'm actually shocked to go back to this, knowing where we're going to be in 2020 after 3 more releases.
Yeah, it is definitely. That's an excellent point.
I could not have predicted that. Yeah.
Yeah, where they start and where they end up is really, you know, to use a different color, out of the blue. I mean, you would not expect it to be like that. So yeah, it was. I think that was part of my pleasant surprise for this band, was just how dynamic they are. They are really, they really give it to you. But yeah, this first release was definitely raw and unfiltered, and just really kind of kicked you in the seat of the pants. And I dug it quite a bit, just because of just how raw it felt.
And again, a lot of that rawness comes from Kurt Ballou. Recording, right, mixing, and engineering it. The dude is just so punk rock to the bone that like everything he touches is just going to sound like decaying shit, and I love it.
Yeah, he's definitely in touch with his primal humanity because he brings it on everything he produces.
Yeah. Well, it's weird to me how he can make stuff sound so disgusting, but at the same time, it'd be very clear. and kind of upfront. Like that's just kind of a talent that he has, and he really brings it out on this record, and the next one too.
2014, I Am King.
This record is more so. If I had to describe it in one word, it would be more so. Did you like the last record? Because this is more so.
Do you like this record more now that you've actually listened to the first record?
I do a little bit. This was my introduction to Code Orange, and man, it's just up your ass heavy, and I love it, man. Like it is hardcore to the bone. Starts off with strong hardcore punk drums. It just goes nuts, man. A lot of my favorite bands sound like this, I'm starting to realize. Like just long ringing out on riffs. Some songs that somewhat build up and then just go all out assault on your ears. Like this is such a far cry from where this band's going to end up. It's almost even hard to believe that it's the same band. But they just have a ferocity here where it sounds to me like they're just trying to establish that, like, hey, we're not some trend jumping hardcore band that's just trying to do what everybody else is trying to do. They're emulating kind of the masters, like Converge, or Botch. Maybe not so much Botch, but I don't know, just having that harder edge, like old Cave In, like stuff like that. Like the actual roots of what this thing that we call metalcore actually is. They embody all of that.
Yeah, these guys, I don't know, on this one, it just the dissonance is like they just turned it up to 11 on this one. The guitars on this are just crunchy and just fucking in your face. I like the quite literally the Discord. I mean, that's what we're recording on, but the Discord that you feel listening to this album is just fan-fucking-tastic. It just, if you should feel uncomfortable and pissed off after listening to this album, in my opinion.
I usually do, but if I'm being honest, that's pretty much my default mood most of the time. So this is definitely a good soundtrack to that.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, that's not my go-to. We've already established I'm more the hippy dippy, melodic, pretty shit. But this one just, whenever I'm having a bad day and I just like fuck everybody, fuck the world, this is my fucking soundtrack right here, man.
Now I'm the king. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's how you feel. Like, you know what? Just fuck everybody else. This is me. And yeah, it's just fucking great.
One of my favorite things about this record too is just the bass sound. How that thing is so up in front in the mix and like just kind of fills the gaps between kind of the heavier parts.
A lot of the tone of the record comes from that distorted mid-range bass. I'm going to quote Scott Mellinger on The Lesser Lights of Heaven. There is something about this record that just sounds dirty. And in the context of Code Orange, that is exactly what you want it to sound like. It's almost got that Oh Sleeper vibe of, I know they're being intense, I know they're being interesting, but something about this just doesn't sound clean. I feel like my ears are being offended, not just at the words or the instruments, but the overall product. Something is just gripping at my ear canals.
Yeah, there's a swagger to this album almost.
And a creepiness too, like a psycho sneaking up behind you with a fucking tire iron, ready to hit you in the back of the head like any moment.
And they're fucking confident about it too. That's what I love about this.
I do have this sweet pompadour.
Yeah. But yeah, just listening to this album is just gives you that arrogance and that hype, and you just feel invincible after listening to this album, and you're pissed off at everybody as well at the same time, and you're just ready to just wreck some shit.
Yeah, it does its job 100%. And when I was talking about establishing hardcore credibility or whatever, this does that, like flat out. Like nobody's gonna fuck with Code Orange now. They're like a legitimate representation of this style. And this late into the 2010s, that's pretty impressive.
2017, Forever.
And now it gets weird.
You mean it gets great?
I mean, it gets awesome, but it's still weird. Weird can be great.
I just want to say this before we move past it. I like the Code Orange album covers. Somebody in the band is an old school vinyl fan, and they like this idea of big colorful letters that say who the artist is, what the record is, and then you just put a picture in the middle of it. Ladies and gentlemen, Unpleasable Metal Fan, 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh no, actually I was just about to say this reminds me a lot of my old Polish cassette tapes that I used to have that were like bootlegs of death metal albums, where they would have exactly that. Like it would be a tiny version of the cover art with like the band's name in big letters, and then the album name in big letters at the bottom. So yeah, this actually gives me a strong Polish bootleg death metal cassette tape vibe. How's that for a hipster fan?
Yeah, Dan wins.
Hipster death metal fan. Yeah.
This particular album, the left turn, as Joe had said earlier, the left turn that they took is great, and they make it work. There's still some hardcore elements, but they've brought in, a lot of industrial feel to it too. And Kurt is still the producer on this. But the interesting thing is that Will Yip is on this as well, and that dude is all over the map. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but that guy has done everything from like Lauryn Hill to Me Without You. I mean, the guy is just all over the place. And it's just really interesting that he was brought in on this. And I don't know if that's, it's like the yin to the yang kind of feel almost, like it makes it work. There's so many dissonances in just how it's produced, how it sounds. I like the female vocals that they're starting to bring in too. I know for some people that might be a little controversial, but I fucking love it.
I think that largely they started off doing everything that they had done before. So that gives this record that kind of legit hardcore edge that it needs. But before you know it, yeah, they're peppering in kind of more industrial elements, some nu metal elements, just some things that you might not be expecting. But it's kind of an interesting compromise because they don't go full hog on any of it. The only thing that they go full hog on is being Code Orange and being brutal. And they do that 100,000%. They're still unexpected, but then you've got like they figured out a profound way to make more types of noise, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think I just realized on Bleeding in the Blur, because that's probably my favorite song on this album, that it's a dude. That's not a female. I just discovered that. I just looked it up.
That's hilarious.
They have 3 vocalists, or at least 3 members of the band that do vocals over the course of their career. And actually, more than one of them has changed roles within the band.
You know what? I might be wrong. It might be the guitarist that I'm hearing in the backing vocals, because she's kind of got a Shirley Manson kind of feel to her voice, because I love Garbage, and I kind of hear a little bit of that in her vocals.
I think it's really interesting seeing a band like this start peppering more elements of different styles into their music, because it would be so easy to just ride the train right out of here. But I really, really like the need to experiment that's on display here. And honestly, even with all of that in the can, like they've done all these amazing things on this record, I'm still not prepared for what I'm going to get next.
Sometime back in April of 2020, we were discussing which albums we were going to discuss on Patreon. For those that do not know, patreon.com/discussmetal. $1 will get you into that exclusive album review feed. We wanted to talk about Code Orange. We didn't. I'm not sure why, and I really wish we had, because underneath in 2020, I have no words to describe the audible onslaught that this record is about to bestow. It goes in so many different electronic directions. It's unfair that this is the only record that sounds like this. There needs to be more of this. It's like Author and Punisher is playing old school hardcore, hanging out with the dude from Dead Z, and while we're at it, let's just throw in some Frankenstein Girls. And by the way, did you know Fit for a King was here? Oh, you need some extremely dissonant guitars? Well, there's Animals as Leaders over there. Throw it all together, and this is what you get.
What you get is my album of the year, and I don't think it's even close. This is almost like it's like industrial metal, horror metal. It's everything. Like, fucking love this album. It almost escapes words. It is one of the greatest things that I've ever heard in my life. I love it that much. I almost didn't do the discography because all I wanted to do was just listen to this album. Even though there was 4 albums, this album is so powerful, so fucking amazing, and just 100% up my alley with its just kind of horror space themes, just fucking going crazy. I don't even know what they're, even if you're not even listening to the lyrics, just musically, this would like fit in an amazing, just scary outer space movie.
There are so many movies that this would be the perfect soundtrack for. You know that one where it's a pandemic or a plague or it's post-apocalyptic and everybody's walking around wearing pieces of leather that they fashioned into old school Western-like outfits, and everybody has goggles on and is wearing face masks with respirators that how could there be filters for, but it's a movie. Don't worry about that shit. This is the soundtrack to that movie. Watch Book of Eli and listen to this. You're welcome, Geoff.
Yeah, I knew that's where you were going, was Book of Eli. I actually went to where another one of our favorite
the Bad
bands
Batch
went to, and that was Event Horizon.
Now that's just cheating.
No, Event Horizon has a very different and much more correct soundtrack, Geoff.
I know, it can have two.
No,
but
it cannot.
It does for me.
No, Geoff, I love this record. I do. But don't go bringing Event Horizon into it.
Fine. I'll keep it out of my own little brain. But God, this shit's so good.
This is a really great fucking record, and I didn't think so at first. I'm not gonna lie, guys. The first time I listened to this, I was like, this just sounds like a bunch of random shit in a blender. And then after like 2 weeks, I was like, this just sounds like a bunch of random shit in a blender. Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. Like, I'm into this now. But it does. It absolutely has way too much stuff going on at the same time, but that doesn't make it bad. It all kind of works. And I think it works in the sense that over the past 3 albums, Code Orange has set us up to not be surprised by anything. And that's very, very important because we're going to be surprised, but we have to be able to kind of push on. I wasn't expecting as many clean vocals, as many weird electronic segments. But at the same time, the same old Code Orange is still in there kicking your ass.
Joe is asking about what is the closest thing to this, and I think it actually might be Alien by Strapping Young Lad, because it made me feel the same way.
I'll take that.
After listening to it as Alien did.
It's weird to me that a Roadrunner Records release in 2020 is so fucking original. Because I'm not going to lie, we've been doing this show for a long time, and one word that we really don't throw out that often is original. Like a band that is doing something that we have never heard a band do before. And I will say with Code Orange, they've really achieved an original sound that I don't think anybody else even comes close to. More specifically on this record, if you go further back in their discography, you can kind of see their influences on their sleeves. But with this, they have done some crazy shit that doesn't sound like any other band. This doesn't sound like chaotic hardcore or deathcore or you know, whatever you want to call bands like Botch and Coalesce and stuff like that. They're using elements to make it sound crazy and chaotic that are not traditionally used to create chaos. And it just fucking works. I don't know. I can't even explain it. I've been flabbergasted by this record for weeks. Because like I feel like it's my responsibility to make some definitive statement about it. But to be honest with you, there's certain times I listen to it and I can't make heads or tails out of it. And then there's other times where I was like, oh yeah, this is the shit that I want.
Yeah, the other only Nimic would probably be a pretty good comparison. Some of Nimic's stuff would probably go in line with this.
I disagree.
I said some. There's a lot of Nimic out there.
Yeah. I know, we talked about it.
But yeah, this album is just, it scratches that itch for me, man, that I didn't even know that I had. That's what makes this album so cool for me, is how much I love it and how much more of it that I want, never realizing that I actually wanted it in the first place. That's when you know you have a really good album on your hands, is that it catches you off guard and you end up loving it when you never thought you would love something like this. It's like savant level, just amazing to me.
It is, man. It's like pure hipster bait.
Okay, so that's why I like it. Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to let you know that that's why you feel that way about this record.
Well, you know what's funny is that there's so many people that were like, this album is amazing. And like our buddy John Beatty, just for a while there, just would not shut up about this album. And I'm like, well, that's cool. You know, maybe I should finally check him out. And I forgot.
Well, I mean, when John Beatty tells me to check something out, I'm almost always like, delete. Just the same thing as like, just the same as like when Geoff recommends me to listen to something, I'm like, delete.
Well, you know, John and I don't always have the same flavors of music because, you know, he loves Foo Fighters and I don't. But that's a story that we've already hashed.
You're wrong. It's okay.
Exactly. I was. And he was absolutely right on this. This is, what else can I say, man? I mean, I'm quite literally speechless. I can't go into specifics because it's so unique, it's so special, it's so good. It is, unless something magically happens over the next few months, this is hands down my album of the year. It's got the chaos, it's got the horror factor, it's got the industrial, it's got the hardcore. I mean, they just took everything that was good, put it in a blender, and it came out making the best fucking omelet you've ever had. That was not in some...
Why?
The biggest criticism of all electronic music is that somebody's just pushing buttons and manipulating someone else's music to sound, quote, original, and it's not creative, and you're not a composer, you're not a musician. Even if you agree with that position, throw it all out the window when you start manipulating your own music, and it sounds like this. This sounds like the last 3 records thrown together in a blender and then manipulated with all the glorious modern electronics and tricks and chaos pads and whatever you would do if you were creating electronic music in 2020. But it doesn't sound like a remix version of another record. It sounds like it was manipulated just enough to give it that vibe, to give it that horror movie sound. This sounds like what House of a Thousand Corpses looks like.
Question for you, Geoff.
Yeah.
This is your album of the year?
It's pretty fucking close so far.
It's not City Burials by Catatonia?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Shots fired. Inside the house.
I just wanted to
Please
check.
go outside and point it at the hill.
Oh my God. No, this record is fucking incredible, though.
It is.
And I don't really like handing that out because I'm supposed to be like critical or whatever, but like there's not a lot. Like, I guess the worst thing that I can say about it is it's a whole bunch of random shit in a blender. But the best thing that I can say about it is the exact same statement. It is different enough for you to take notice. It is something that nobody else is ever going to be able to do without somebody immediately being like, they ripped off Code Orange here. And that's just the way it is. The only other band that I can think of that has that sort of domination over a specific sound would be Me Without You.
Final thoughts on Code Orange. Geoff.
The one thing that I've always gotten from these guys is that underlying current of being manic. There's something to them that makes you feel a sense of urgency, and you're not always exactly sure why. And I love that about these guys. And then whenever Underneath came out, it just took that and amplified it to the nth degree and has turned this into one of my favorite modern bands. I love these guys. And if you're on the fence to check these guys out, get off the fucking fence and go buy this album. And then it's okay working your way backwards because it's such an amazing transformation that they go through. But Underneath is just a goddamn masterpiece. I mean, what else can I say? I love the thing to pieces.
Dan, what about you?
I think it's really interesting how if you start with Underneath and you listen backwards, the band kind of eases you out of the insanity of Underneath. But if you're listening to this in chronological order, they absolutely do not ease you in. And I think that's the most interesting thing is that, like, you've got a good band on your hands whenever the weirdest thing that they do isn't that they play hardcore punk. You know what I mean? Like, if you're listening to them playing, hardcore punk or hardcore, like, and that's the normal thing that they do, you've got something kind of original on your hands because you're not going to be expecting what they're going to do next. This band just cannot be generic. It's like a disease to them. So, I mean, I largely agree with Geoff. I would pick up this one or Forever. And I will make a distinction here that I do actually enjoy Forever a little bit more than I enjoy Underneath. But I think that's just because I'm a meathead and I like heavy shit. And it's not even that, one's heavier than the other. It's just that Forever is much more hardcore based. So that's just my recommendation. I think that those 2 albums are great. You can take or leave the first 2. They're fantastic as well. But they really start getting innovative here on Forever and on Underneath.
Do you listen to heavy music all the time, and for
Yes.
whatever reason you've decided you're bored with your favorites this week? I know that doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it does. Sometimes you're digging through the pile of albums that you know are a sure thing, looking for the one that's going to scratch the itch today. If the pile has run dry, for no other reason than just trust us, you need to listen to Code Orange because the band has a perfect level of chaos and heavy and intensity and brevity. They don't hang around forever on each record. And absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you need to listen to Underneath first if you've never listened to this band. And if you have listened to this band and you haven't heard Underneath, whatever you think you like or don't like is not correct at this moment in time. I cannot recommend the band enough, if only for the newest record, because I think the newest record appeals to the majority of heavy music fans. And if you're a fan of heavy music, you should definitely be listening to Code Orange. Dan, what's your album of the week?
My album of the week is Il Niño, Revolution.
Good fucking choice. Geoff, what about you?
All right. I think I'm going to piss some people off with this choice, but I'm going to preface it with something. I know a lot of people know now that I tend to lean politically towards the conservative side of things. With that being said, my album of the week is the self-titled release by Rage Against the Machine. And the reason why is because I'm not happy in the United States with either one of our choices on who's going to be president. I've always felt that it's up to the people to take the power back. I don't like big government. That's why I'm a conservative. I don't want a huge government telling me everything that I have to do. And that's one of the things that I do agree with Rage Against the Machine. In why, as a conservative, they still mean a lot to me, because they're about disliking the system, fighting the system, and making it better for everybody. Just because my point of view is different than your point of view doesn't mean that I'm okay with the status quo. So everybody go out there whenever it's time, vote with your passion, vote with your heart, and do what you believe is right. Just because it's a two-party system, that doesn't mean you have to vote that way. Vote with what you believe is right, and vote with your heart, and vote with your mind. Don't be a lemming. Don't follow everybody. Blaze your own path, be your own person, and be original.
For me, it's Bastard Luck by the Bastard Squad. Don Bastard does it again. Even though it's the same record, I still can't get enough of it.
I was going to say, didn't he do it the first time?
Yes, he did. And then he took a long hiatus and came back.
20 years later.
And if you want to hear all about that, you should listen to the Discuss Metal podcast. There'll be a link in the show notes. Way to take the power back, Geoff.
Sorry, I had to do it.
I'm leaving it in, don't worry. Take us out, DFT.
First of all, thank you guys for listening to our podcast. If you ever want to reach out to us or talk to us in any way, you can do that in several different ways. You can send us an email at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Facebook at facebook.com/discography discussion. You can send us a message on Twitter at Discuss Metal, or just tweet at us. That works as well. You can talk to us on our Discord server, which there will be a link in the show notes that'll take you right to Discord. If you just can't get enough content, you can always check out our Patreon page, where we do individual album reviews and a couple of other cool things. Make sure to be checking out the Discuss Metal podcast whenever it drops. And you can always go to our Teespring store and check out some of our sweet, sweet merch. Link in the show notes.
And on that note, this has been episode 188 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion. And please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks.
Give me your money.
Seems clear, the future's not so bright. The only chance is not to waste your life. Have hope and have no fear. The truth walks by your side.